I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and AD Drew. Mike is out on assignment. And something came up with him. He was going to try to get in here, but duty calls when you're getting it done. So with that being said, welcome to episode 618 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU business, aesthetics, as we like to say, the business of HBCU sports. We just simply say HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in a beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. In between taking phone calls all day about where you staying in Vegas. We'll get to that story, but doing well. Everybody trying to secure their hotel arrangements and whatnot for big game with grandma.
So are you trying to suggest to us that you are planning to attend?
I'm saying if everything goes my way, hopefully I'll be broadcasting somewhere that day. So I don't know if I'll be in.
You put in your preference, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
They say hopefully it just works out that way.
Yeah, hopefully it just works itself out. So.
It makes sense. I see you. Smart answer there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
AD Drew, how are you doing today?
Well, unfortunately, because of my new job duties, I can't necessarily plan to go to Vegas that particular weekend. But my suggestion would be, use one of those apps at those casinos and everything that get you those rooms at those good rates and all, because they want you to gamble your money away. Because that's what I would be doing if I was heading to Vegas that weekend. But my bye week, unfortunately, for our institution is not that same weekend. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do on my bye week. But I'm doing fine, Dr. Cavill. Getting back to the original question that you asked, Dr. Cavill. Long, tough day in the office, the business of NCAA athletics on the Division II level is just as tough as it is on the Division I level. We'll just leave it at that.
Who would have thunk it?
Not those who looking for NIL. They don't thunk.
Great response. Well, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Sounds like Charles has some news that he certainly will get up there, but if he would allow me to get some news out of the day, I'm going to take a little privilege, as they would say. Texas Southern Sports Hall of Fame. I happen to be a co-chair on that committee with Dr. Holmes that does a lot of the legwork to his credit. So wanted to give him kudos, obviously under the guidance of the Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics. That's Dr. Kevin Granger. 13 members were announced as the 2025 class for TSU Sports Hall of Fame. That's the Texas Southern University Sports Hall of Fame. Those jackets and patches that we were able to put together and design for the relaunch, if you would, of the class last year are really nice. So some other people are in positions to be able to get their jackets. This is the class. Ray Carrington III, tennis. Gaylord Davis, men's basketball. Coach Nathaniel Gillespie, men's and women's basketball. Cortez Hankton Jr., football. John Hartfield, men's track and field. Coach Johnny Means, swimming. Cassandra Rivera, women's golf. Yvette Wilson Scales, supporter / contributor. Thomas A., football. Dennis Taylor, women's basketball. Linda Weekly, women's track and field. Fred West, men's basketball. And last, a lot of people were going to be familiar with this one, is Dr. Charles McCullen, administration, I should say, specific. So kudos to all of those in the Texas Hall of Fame, and special shout out to Charles. I was in the mix when I was here just getting started on my academic journey. Wasn't even a full faculty member. I was a student in the doctoral program. And I remember I was a fellow, to be specific, a doctoral fellow, finish up my doctorate degree, and still doing some work. Shout out to Texas Can, as I was doing halftime over there, as they led me to take a sabbatical, which had never been done at a high school level, or at least in this area, for charter schools. So that worked out as I finished school. I remember when he had the opportunity, under the leadership of former President Rudley, about the talk that he was going to be coming over to Texas Southern. And boy, did it work out well for Texas Southern University, and Charles, I believe he would say that as well. Now the commissioner, at the time just becoming the AD, later becoming the VP of athletics, of having one of the winningest eras that Texas Southern had ever had in terms of the total sports of what they were doing. In a lot of ways, Granger has picked up with that, particularly what he's doing in basketball and building on that. But shout out to all of those again, particularly a friend of mine, Dr. Charles McCullen. Congratulations. A job well done again by the committee. Shout out to Dr. Roderick Holmes, I should say, Dr. Roderick Holmes, professor over there in the mathematics department, chair of the UAC committee, and co-chair with me of the Texas Southern University Hall of Fame. So I want to shout out that again under the leadership of Dr. Kevin Granger. With that being said, I'll yield and pass on. Unless you wanted to add some thoughts before you do that, you can go to your HBCU thoughts of the week, Charles.
Quickly, kudos to those new inductees into the Texas Southern Hall of Fame. I believe, is this Dr. McCullough? Is this his first induction into a Hall of Fame?
Yes, my understanding that this is his first call to a Hall of Fame. That's a week down the street over there at 290. This is the first one. And so it's my understanding that he's quite humble and excited about getting the call and the recognition, which anytime you can do that to give people their recognition while they're still able to really take advantage of it is good. And so you're right. It's his first one.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. Kudos to the selection committee for all those worthy inductees into the Texas Southern Hall of Fame. So I definitely want to tip of the hat to all of those inductees.
John Grant say Dr. Phil in the tie. What does it mean? What is he talking about? Oh, so now he's trying to throw something back since we got him about a couple of weeks ago when he was on the beach. I guess he's back from the Bahamas on the beach. Now he's throwing salt and I guess I should say he's throwing sand. Anyway, with that being said, Charles Bishop,
let's get to
what's on your mind? G-Boom.
Big news coming out of Las Vegas, and this comes to us from HBCU Sports. As Ken Rashad broke this, but Grambling State and Jackson State will take their football rivalry to Las Vegas. It has been confirmed that they will face off October 25th in Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL's Las Vegas Raiders. So the matchup is a showcase of HBCU football. It will mark the first meeting between the schools in that state-of-the-art venue. And I was checking in on Ken. He was mentioning that Jackson State will be the home game. So with regards to the financials of that, it will, the lion's share of the gate or whatever you might say would go towards Jackson State. Gramblin's expenses will be taken care of going out there, but wanted to make sure that he made that point of distinction clear. So, but huge news for all those alumni of Jackson State and Grambling, especially out in the Los Angeles, California area. Jackson State and Grambling headed out west.
Good deal for both of the VPs of athletics involved in that, Jackson State as well as Grambling State. Should be fun time for all. Las Vegas is always an exciting place to play. With that being said, big time football game for these two rivals to get it on. Should be interesting to see as the announcement has officially been made that Grambling State and Jackson State game is moving to Las Vegas.
And it will count as a conference game. Yeah, it will count.
And it will count as a conference game. I wasn't sure. I thought they rotate back on this year and officially as a conference game. Ooh, that's a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah.
Different divisions, but still counts the same in the 18 going up. So it'd be interesting. With that being said, AD Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of HBCU news that has you excited or intrigued today?
Well, although Charles's classic in Las Vegas does not have a name yet, I want to talk about one of the oldest classics out there that does have a name. How about the Orange Blossom Classic, or this iteration of the Orange Blossom Classic?
Good stuff.
Got the facts from Jordan. We're back. After a 1-year hiatus, the Orange Blossom Classic will once again feature Florida A&M University. According to a report by Rattler Nation, an independent blog that covers the university affairs. The Rattlers will play the Howard Bison this fall. Right now, the game is scheduled for August 30th at Hard Rock Stadium. Neither school has officially released their football schedule to confirm, but inside sources pretty much say that it is confirmed. So we know last year Alabama State Central played in the Orange Blossom Classic that same weekend. It was the first time since the event was revived that Florida A&M did not participate in it. So I'm glad everybody was able to come to grips, come to terms, and decided that everybody wanted to play in the sandbox again, because Florida A&M belongs in the Orange Blossom Classic. They belong in Miami. So it's getting back to this sense of normality. I'm happy to see it right there. And by the way, since John Grant is on, I will throw this out there. This is a rematch of the Celebration Bowl from 2 years ago.
Ah, good point. Good catch. Good catch.
But the rematch.
Charles, you had something you wanted to make sure you got.
It seems as though the rematch that you really want looks like Jackson State will be making a trip down to Bragg next year, huh?
Well, here's the thing. We've been wanting to get Jackson State in Bragg before Prime. Before Prime was even there, So I think there was no way in that we was gonna let that game leave Tallahassee, Florida.
Smart.
We had the opportunity with it. I think if we want to shift gears and talk about Jackson State, FAMU in Bragg, that will be a homecoming-like crowd in Bragg for that particular ball game.
Yeah, you made me nervous there for a minute when you said homecoming. Then I'm glad you added the last part. I was like, is he breaking some other news?
Well, like Alabama State. Alabama State is.
But I agree.
Crowd.
Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be like homecoming, like that's what I said. When you added that part, I kind of went down at first. I was like, "Ooh, is he breaking something?"
I like Bragg.
Changing flag.
Yeah, I like Bragg. I like going down there.
Charles feeling pretty good about Bragg. It must have gone well for him. With that being said, let me get into
last time y'all was there, right, Charles? Not to cut you off, Dr. Cavill. Yeah. We owe y'all a little Bragg butt with.
You know,
I mean, we can't get it done at Memorial, so we got to do it somewhere.
you know,
We'll take care of
that. Little brother. Yeah.
We're about to lose control of the show. With that being said, let me give you some updates before this first break, as these guys are having too much fun. We have the FAMU Alabama State game, Thursday women game. You know, we kind of got outside of that a couple of weeks ago when several games were postponed because of the snow. But we're back at it. So FAMU is hosting the Alabama State, and they're up big, 38-22, with about 50 seconds before half. While the other game in Florida is Alabama A&M at Bethune-Cookman, and it's just started with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Alabama A&M is up 3-2 over Bethune-Cookman. Alcorn State, and that FAMU game has went to half, so it's 38-22. Grambling State and Alcorn State, 6:30 tip-off, and then you got a Jackson State at Southern, also a 6:30 tip-off. You have the rivalry game between Prairie View and Texas Southern, as Southern comes in at 7-0, while Prairie View is struggling. They've actually lost quite a few games as they're struggling with the loss of the last three. But what's fascinating with Texas Southern, both on the men's and women's side, because those games were canceled, so those games will be played on Tuesday. Since there's the open Monday, they pushed it past that, but you will see Texas Southern traveling to Pine Bluff, men's and women, before they end the first half. People may have recognized and say they just got 7 games to play Prairie View to get to the halfway mark. What happened to the game? Well, that game had to be rescheduled. So it'd be fascinating to see that trip and see how they kind of finalize things on both the women and men's side. With that being said, let's take our first break. We'll come back on the other side, and it's time to get into the Division II. We'll talk a little bit about NAIA. We'll start with the CIAA women's, and we'll give you some updates and tell you what has changed. I can tell you the Virginia State team, as we kind of give you a little sneak peek on there, lost their first game and ended their win streak. With that being said, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the other side. Stick with us after our first break.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Morehouse College and Tuskegee University men's basketball teams were selected to compete in the 2025 NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T. The 4th annual NBA HBCU Classic will be played in the Bay Area as part of NBA All-Star 2025 and will once again celebrate the rich traditions, on-court athleticism, and commitment to excellence of the HBCU community. For tickets, visit nba.com/all-star.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir,
Yes,
and
sir.
pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and AD Drew. As we get in there, I started to come back and pronounce the name a little different and change my voice and see how it messed y'all up. But I decided I didn't want to play that game today. So we'll see. Maybe the next segment. We'll see if I'm up to it. Let's get into the CIAA for the women's side as we talk about what's going on. Kind of teased it out. Virginia State had the first loss after winning 7 straight games, playing pretty good basketball. But guess what? It is to the team that's right behind them. So Virginia State sits at 8-2 in conference play, while Bowie State sits at 8-2 in conference play. Behind them are Virginia Union that sit at 7-1. Both Bowie State and Virginia Union are on a win streak. Bowie State with just 2 straight, but Virginia Union with 3 straight. The intriguing thing, the loss was by Virginia State to Bowie State. So all 3 of those teams are 3-1 when you look at the division. What is fascinating, as I said, those top 2 teams by Bowie State and Virginia State, they sit at 8-2. What's fascinating is Bowie State was able to get that done on the road. Virginia State was at home. That was a home loss. Close one, 69-61 in that game, where credit to the Bulldogs by getting it done in that matchup on the women's side of things. So I'm fascinated what that looks like. And so with that being said, I'm going to go with the Southern Division, and then you can kind of decide which part that you want to take on. Is you had a similar framework that happened on the Southern Division. Fayetteville State looked like they were going to run away with things. Certainly still are in solid position as they have a 2-game lead, but Livingston made sure that they can't rest on their laurels. Division-wide, the Broncos are at 4-1. Livingston Blue Bears are at 3-1. But that loss by Fayetteville State was to Livingston, who has won 3 straight games in that matchup. That was another game where you also seen the road team come in and get a big win to the team that was leading the division. In this case, again, as I said, you look at the fact that Livingston got it done. It was really a close one as they just nipped out a win on the road, which is big time. They won 68-66 in terms of what's taking place there. I'll kind of put it in that matchup in the Northern Division. We're talking about probably a 3-team race, it looks like, with other teams really far behind. In the Southern Division, essentially, is a 2-team race. You may want to push a little bit and say Claflin is a little bit in there in terms of they're just 1 game behind in the Southern Division, a couple of less losses, but fascinating. So you might be able to stretch it out to 3. With that being said, Charles, let me go to you first. What are your thoughts in terms of what's going on in the CIAA on the women's side as things start to kind of get to a position where you need to make a run if you're going to do it, or you can hold it and biting it down a little bit and see if you can get your regular season division championship going into the tournament?
Yeah, kudos goes out to Mia Smith. I mean, 31 points in that game, 11 of 25 shooting, but even bigger, 5 of 7 from the 3-point arc. And Bowie State got it done in the 4th quarter, shot 50% from behind the arc in that game against Virginia State. So hats off to Bowie State. It sets up an interesting matchup. I believe they got Bluefield coming up next, and then another big one with Virginia Union.
Good stuff. AD Drew?
You know what I find interesting? This is the difference between the 2 Division II conferences. The CIAA bases their standings on division record versus the SIAC, who base their standings on your overall record. Wow. Let's just take the North. You got Virginia State, Virginia Union, and Bowie State all tied at 3-1, quote unquote, tied for first place. But Virginia Union has the best conference record out of the 3 when you add in the games for the Southern Division. So my question is, Charles, don't all games matter? Do some games matter more than others when it comes to basketball? Apparently, some games matter more than others. So I just find that interesting. I mean, heck, let's look at the 4th place team in the Northern Division. Bluefield State, 2-2 in the division, but 2-7 overall. So, you know, it's it's interesting, and what I find interesting, and I'm pivoting fast forward on this. It's gonna make for some real interesting matchups come tournament time because you're gonna see some teams that did good in the division, but when you take the overall record and when they played the other division, did not do so hot. So you may see Final Four from all North or all South, vice versa, but looking like the strengths to the North. So you may realistically could see an all North Final Four in the CIAA, at least on the women's side. Just food for thought out here on a Thursday afternoon, January 30th, year of our Lord 2025.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's switch to the men in the CIAA, starting with the Southern Division. Fayetteville State is one of these cases where we have both men's and women's basketball programs playing some good basketball. In fact, the Broncos have won 6 straight games. They lead the conference at 7-3. Right behind them is Shaw at 6-3. They're undefeated in the division, as Drew alluded to, and how important that is, with Shaw just behind them at 3-1. Shaw has won 3 straight games. But guess what? These two teams match up on Tuesday of next week for a big matchup. It'll be fascinating to see can Fayetteville State make a major statement and try to put that win on the table. What Shaw said, not so fast, and said, hey, let us get a chance to get it done and even things up in the loss column. From a division perspective, it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. When you go to the Northern Division, you have a similar case to what you've seen on the women's side. Lincoln had won 10 straight games, but they had a loss. So they just lost the game. Interesting to see as you move forward, can they get things going? They sit at 8-1. Behind them are 5-3 Virginia Union, and Bluefield State sits at 5-4. In terms of division, the top 2 teams are Lincoln, Pennsylvania at 3-1, Virginia Union at 3-1. Then you have 2 teams, Bluefield State and Bowie State, sitting at 2-2 in terms of what that looks like. That loss for Lincoln, Pennsylvania could be costly. It was at Bluefield State that we just talked about in the mix. It was a big win by Bluefield State, 78-65. So they get it done at home for Bluefield State. Credit to them, giving a chink in the armor to Lincoln, Pennsylvania. So I'm interested to see AD. Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of what's going on the men's side of the CIAA? When you look at Lincoln, Pennsylvania, it looked like they were running away with things, good basketball. But Bluefield State said, hey, not so fast. I put a halt to some of those wins over there. We got something for you at home over here in Bluefield State.
Yeah, what was interesting is when you look at Lincoln, PA, nobody in the top 10, actually nobody in the top 12 in scoring.
Right.
But they do have, 2 or 3 in the top 10 in rebounders. So controlling the ball. They don't turn the ball over. Number 2 in defense in the conference, giving up 67 points per game. And we all know the magic number when it comes to men's basketball. If you under 70 defensively, you got a good chance to win 9 out of 10 ball games, because this team is only averaging 71 points per game. So they're getting it done, and by having those good rebounding stats, controlling the boards, limiting teams to 1 shot, you can afford to play when your margin of victory is only 3 points and still come away with those victories. I'm just something from an old basketball coach right there. Just a little schooling out there on some stuff to look at, y'all.
I like the way you did that, Charles. Charles, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm curious, old basketball coach, is this that part of the season where you start seeing, maybe a misnomer out there where it's like, I didn't see that coming. I mean, when we get towards late January, kind of flip the calendar to February, is that kind of when you start seeing, maybe a Bluefield knock off a team like Lincoln? Lincoln's running away with the conference. All of a sudden, you just get this abnormal game, or do we start seeing that a little bit more in February?
You really start seeing it more in February, especially as teams face each other for the second time. I mean, heck, we know Bluefield can score the ball, but the thing is, they can't stop anybody either. They can't stop anybody with the door on hinges. So I'm just throwing it out there. So, but you learn about these teams when you play a team. We'll take a Lincoln, who's a defensive team. We take a Bluefield, who wants to light it up. They want to put up 100 on you. Can Lincoln control the pace of play? That's what you know as a coach. You're going up a team that's stylistically different than you are. Can you control the game and get them out of their comfort zone to play your game? If the answer is yes, that's what you have. And every coach knows we got a chance. I've seen some squads. That's a team that I don't want to face in the tournament. I don't want to see them. I need somebody to knock them off because I don't have confidence because stylistically that style beats me. So that's what you really got to start looking at this stuff.
Charles, say that for the other side because I want you to follow up in the lead in, and we'll let you get back into it as we're going to switch into SIC. But let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side, and as we do that, we'll let Charles open it up with that question before we lead in to the breakdown on the SIC on the women's side. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this second break.
Greetings, Panthers. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T featuring Morehouse College and Tuskegee University. Don't miss this action-packed event happening at NBA All-Star 2025 and filled with competitive matchup and marching band performances celebrating HBCU pride. See you in the Bay.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Will inside the HBCU Sports Lab with the two professors. With that being said, Charles, go ahead and follow up with the question you had for AD Drew before we jump into this SIC.
This comes from my mom. She's watching, and she's been wanting to ask this of a basketball coach. But what does it mean for a coach to dictate pace of play? She asked me that question this past weekend, and I said, that's an interesting one because every basketball coach, that's almost a standard line in terms of we want to dictate pace of play. But what does that actually mean, and how do you actually accomplish dictating pace of play?
All right, I have a team who likes to get up and down. I got a bunch of athletes. I got a bunch of guards. So I want to play fast. First of all, I dictate pace of play by when I have the ball, I'm trying to shoot the ball 8, 10, 12 seconds into the shot clock. I'm trying to get shots up as fast as possible. The philosophy behind that is the more volume that I'm able to produce offensively, then the chances of me scoring, a la a Bluefield State. Bluefield is a team, I guarantee you, if you look at how quickly they take their shots, they're probably taking shots about every 10 seconds when they have the ball, 8 to 10 seconds when they have the ball. And that's probably a team that you face where you never see the shot clock getting down and have to worry about listen to the bench count down on the shot clock. Let's take a defensive team. On the other side, let's take Lincoln, since these are the two teams that we're talking about. No, let's take Fayetteville State, since they're number one in the conference defensively. They want to slow the pace down. Maybe they've got a bunch of post players, so they're gonna take their time. They're gonna run dribble weave. They're gonna run some things. You remember when you was playing in YMCA or park ball, and coach was like, "I want the ball passed 5 times before we take a shot." That's that type. That's that type of team, and then you get the ball to the to your post players, or you run a high screen roll and try to get something going, draw the defense and kick it. But you're gonna run it where the shot clock is consistently in single digits when you shoot the ball. So you want to dictate that, and you want to slow it down. The other thing you can do it is defensively. Once again, I've got a fast team. I'm going to come full court man. I'm going to come 1-2-2 trap, try to get you to play fast. And the reason behind that, a lot of people don't understand this. I really don't care if you turn the ball over or not. Now, if you go hand the ball to me, give me a steal, heck yeah, I'm going down on that fast break and lay the thing in. What it is to get you out of your comfort zone and get you to shoot the ball quicker than you're comfortable with shooting. You want to play up and down. You want to take all these threes, and I want you to miss it. You can. I want you. Matter of fact, I want you to hit the first couple ones, because that's not your style. When you hit those first couple ones, Charles, what you do? You got confidence. You gonna have that heat check. The moment that heat check comes and that powder light gets blown out, I got you. Now we going up and down. You still trying to get that heat check and you might hit that one from 25 feet, 27 feet, but you done shot 8 of them. Oh, you done broke a clock right twice during the day, Charles. And then vice versa on that team that wants to slow you down. I may go 2-3 zone. I may go 3-2 zone. I may even go a 1-3-1 half court trap. And people don't understand the purpose of the half court trap is really to get you to slow down, because you have to consistently pass the ball over the trap and move the ball side to side to get it to your offense. So as you zigzag it down the court, guess what's happening? That little thing over the goal, that little 18-inch box over the goal, goes out 1 digit every time. Tick, 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 tick. So now you take time off the shot clock. So there's different ways to dictate the pace of play. My thing is, I want you to play my style of basketball. If I get you to play my style of basketball, I have enough confidence in my ability as a coach and what I teach my guys that I should beat you 9 times out of 10. You don't want anybody to beat you at your own game.
Great information. Thanks, Mama Bishop, for asking that question, and Charles for bringing it out there.
Yes, thanks, Mama.
Giving AD Drew a chance to show out a little bit, breaking it down. So we're going to do this a little different, since we're looking through the clock at this lens. I'm going to do it this way. The big matchup that we're looking coming up is going to be a crossover matchup between East and West. It is Clark Atlanta and Miles. Clark Atlanta is leading the East Division. They're 8-2 over the last one. They're actually 8-9 over the last 9 games. But they had a tough loss. But they still sit at 15-5 overall, 9-3 in the conference race. Wins, they're 3 games ahead of Allen, but just 1 in terms of the loss that's behind them. The other one is Miles, who was really getting things done in the West, 12-4, 8-9-3. I know on a side note, AD Drew kind of had an eye looking at this. Obviously, he's focusing on Morehouse, but Tuskegee got it done on the road with what many people would think is a slight upset in terms of how teams came in, but it really tightens things up in the West, with Miles just being at 9-3, Tuskegee at 8-4, and Lane at 8-4. Miles is 7-3 over the last 10 games, while Tuskegee is 8-2, but that's a big win. But the real game coming up is Clark Atlanta and Miles. AD Drew, what are your thoughts on the women's side of this matchup between Clark Atlanta and Miles coming up on, I believe, Tuesday?
Yeah. While I have not seen Miles' women's team this year in person, I have seen that Clark Atlanta team, but I have seen a lot of these ladies from Miles play because they essentially have their core back from last year. Ayana Harris she's about knee high to a frog, but she's about as quick as a frog out there too. She's about 5'4", and that's with shoes on. But that girl is lightning fast and can shoot the ball for Miles. Handles the ball, everything. Clark Atlanta's guards are a little bit bigger than the Miles guards. So that's what you're going to focus on this matchup. Will it be the quickness of the Miles guards, or will it be a little bit more of a deliberate game by Clark Atlanta? Now, don't get me wrong. Clark Atlanta can get up and down the court, but Clark and both these teams are probably two of the top defensive teams in the conference. So it's going to be a very, very, very intriguing matchup. I can't call it one way or the other because of what I do. But even if I could, I couldn't, Dr. Cavill, because these two teams are that good. I think that even this would not surprise me if this is a one possession game or even an overtime contest before this game is decided on next Tuesday.
So this game is starting on Monday. Let me stand corrected.
Monday, okay.
In terms of I was the one that came in and said Tuesday, but it's actually on Monday. What's intriguing about this matchup, while it's a crossover, according to the schedule, this is not a conference game. Going into this matchup, Miles has two games. They have a game on Saturday against Lane before they play Clark Atlanta on that Monday. Clark Atlanta goes straight into this game on Monday. Charles?
Well, what's interesting to me, and I'm trying to kind of hedge here. Clark, number 2 in offense in the SIAC. Miles, number 2 in defense. When you take a look at that sort of matchup, I guess the question for me is, where do you kind of lean? Do you lean with the team that has the better offense, or is it the team that can slow down the pace of the game? Miles is only surrendering 58 points per game. So that's jumps out for me with regards to their defense. They're one of the top rebounding teams in the league. I'm gonna go with Miles in this.
I like that because it gets to our discussion earlier when you talk about who can kind of control the tempo, who can force their style of play. Let's flip over to the men's side where things are tight at the top. Just to be frank, Albany State sitting at 13-7. Edward Waters at 14-6. Clark Atlanta at 12-7. So it's fascinating in terms of conference. Albany State at 10-3. Edward Waters at 9-3. Clark Atlanta right there at 9-3. When you look at those 3-10 teams, both Albany State and Edward Waters have won 8 of their last 10, while Clark Atlanta has won 7 of their last 10 in terms of going into those matchups. When you talk about Miles, they are 9 of 10 in their last 10 games, sitting at 15-3, 12-1. Closest team behind them is Tuskegee at 7-5, and they got it done against them, unlike the women of Miles. So fascinating to see what that looks like. Charles, where are you going with these matchups in the SIAC, whether it's in the East, the West, or both?
Well, looks like you got a fun one with Clark and Morehouse Saturday, huh?
The battle of the AUC.
Yeah, that
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
2 o'clock Eastern at Epps. I suggest you come there with your wallet in hand and your credit card out, because they are going to tax you on that game.
That one looks intriguing.
I like that. We're going to leave it right there for this next break. We'll come back and talk a little bit of the NIA. I think that's the big matchup, as Drew put it perfectly. The one we're going to be entertained by this Saturday is the Battle of the AUC. With that being said, we'll take our next break, come back on the other side, and we'll talk a little bit about the NIA. We got some big news. Xavier on the women's side had the first conference loss this past week. So we'll talk a little bit about that. They're still leading or tied at the top of the conference. And then we'll give you some updates about Florida more, what's going on in the Sooner Athletic Conference. We'll look at the NIA side of the world. With that being said, let's take our last break, and come back on the other side. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta CAVIL'S of Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app. As we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Will with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles and AD. AD gave us an update. D2 baseball opens this weekend, so keep your eyes on that. You can see what that looks like as we.
I will be in New Orleans for it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Also, an update on some of these scores out here. Tennessee State has fought back in the OVC. It's 58-61. Little Rock is leading. 1:25 left in the fourth quarter. See if Tennessee State can get that first conference win of the season. Be fascinating to see what that looks like. Let me give you some updates on the SWAC in terms of those scores there. FAMU continues to win big over Alabama State. They are up 51-28. That is 2:15 left in the third. We've gone to halftime in Daytona. Alabama A&M has come back and they've taken the lead as they are up 28-25, just a 3-point lead over Bethune-Cookman. We do have updates as the games have started, as Alcorn State is on the road at Grambling. They're up 1-0 at 9:58 left in the first quarter as it's just tipped off. Jackson State is in a close one. This is a big one, rivalry game here. But Jackson State leads Southern 9-7 with 3:58 in the first quarter on that matchup. So interesting to see that. With that being said, let's get into some of the talk, if you would, in terms of Xavier that I told you earlier. They have their first loss of the season in terms of games that count. They did have 2 Division I exhibition losses early in the season, but they were 18 games. They had won 15 in conference. They lost to LSU Shreveport in that matchup. It was a close one, just like the first one. What's intriguing when you think about what's going on here, Last time we talked about this being potentially a good game, they got it done. With Xavier winning 65-62, they were on the road. They come home and they have a really narrow loss as they lose 58-56. So this is going to be an interesting one going down the stretch. Can any other team put a loss on one of these teams such that one of them can get it done in the regular season? But you imagine, regardless, they would probably face off unless there's a major upset in terms of the tournament to see who gets that crown as well. So kind of interesting to see what goes on there. In terms of the women's side of the team on the ledger, when we look at some of the other teams over here in the Sooner Athletic Conference, let's check out and see what the women are doing over there in terms of Langston. We told you to keep your eyes on there, so we'll get some updates with what that looks like. In terms of the standings, Langston is still getting it done as they lead. Their overall record is 20-1. They are 7-0 at home. Obviously, that means they're 9-1 away. And they are 16-1 in the Sooner Athletic Conference, or the SAC. They do have Wayland Baptist that's just behind them at 15-2. They've clinched in terms of tournament berths, obviously, in the Sooner, but I'm fascinated to see what that looks like when you talk about Langston playing some really good basketball, when you talk about the NAIA side of things. With that being said, let me give you some Florida Memorial updates. They are women for the Lions over there in the Sun Conference. They are 16-2 overall and 9-1 in conference play as they are over there at the top of things. We also have the HBCU Athletic Conference. Fascinating with seeing what's going on over there in so much of the world, as they say, around those parts. But when you think about the HBCU AC, with all the conferences, they've gotten it done. Their tournament will be Stillman with the newest member over there. I'm interested what that looks like as they host it. But let me give you an update in terms of what's going on the women's side of things for women's basketball before we get into the men. With those records over there, you know you have your East-West division to continue to play good basketball. When you look at the standings, you have Stillman, again, who will be hosting the tournament, but they're getting it done in the regular season, leading the way. They are 11-1 in conference play, 17-4 overall, and the closest team behind them is Fisk at 8-6, so they can close that thing down, really. On the other side, which is the matchup you want to look at, is Dillard, Louisiana. They are 12-6 overall, but 9-2 in the conference, but they got Tougaloo. They won't let them shake it loose at 9-3. Of those teams, Charles, what do you have your eyes on? Any of them in particular? Any thoughts in terms of LSU Shreveport being able to get it done on the road against a previously undefeated Xavier team? Or are you looking in a different direction of what's going on in HBCU?
Well, I think I was looking at the HBCU AC with Stillman. You mentioned them hosting the tournament, but women's team doing tremendous this year, 17-4 thus far on the season. Like you said, they're kind of running away with it a little bit there.
Yeah, no doubt is they are closing up on teams. I wonder how much home advantage will be having that tournament at home. We shall see. AD Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of the NAIA on the women's side of things?
I'm gonna echo what Charles is saying about Stillman. I like Coach. And do you know what the head coach's name is at Stillman? Does anybody know? Before I say it,
no.
It's the perfect basketball name. His last name is Dunk. D-U-N-K. Coach Dunk. Aliko Dunk. You know I like what he's doing over there. He's had that team that's always been on the cusp. So I'm glad to see this year that he's able to get a group of girls that has really ascended him. Dr. Cavill, want to also point out that the latest rankings came out on yesterday in NAIA. Florida Memorial is in the receiving votes category. Essentially, they're number 28. Langston, number 19. Xavier, number 18. And what's crucial about that, you want to see either one of those teams, if not both of those teams, in like the top 15. Definitely want to see them in the top 10, so they get an opportunity to host the first two rounds of the NAIA tournament on their own court, which would increase their chance of getting to the final 16 at the site where they host that at. The men is Kansas City. I can't remember where. The women is in Sioux City, Iowa. So you want to see them try to get into that top 10 so they can get their home court advantage to host the tournament, so they can make their trip to Iowa.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Continuing with the HBCU AC on the men's side of things, Stillman, that's fascinating. Again, you see these schools that just have the basketball, and it really makes for a lively atmosphere when both men's and women's programs are doing well. We kind of see that at the Division I level with MEAC, Norfolk State. In the SWAC, you have that with Jackson State, Southern, as well as Texas Southern, playing some really good basketball, both men's and women's. So kind of fascinating to see how that's going. Getting back to the NIA side of things, Stillman is getting it done on the men's side in terms of the conference race. Not so much overall; they just sit at 12-8, but in conference race they're sitting at 10-3. Talladega's behind them, just 2 games back at 9-5. When you get into the west side of things, Tougaloo. We always talk about the basketball they playing down there. Overall, just 16-5, but 10-2 in terms of conference place. But Dillon, just like on the women's side, they're right there at 9-2. So I'm fascinated what that looks like. I'm gonna go to Florida Memorial before we go to the Sooner Athletic Conference with Langston, and are getting it done on the men's side. When we talk about Florida Memorial, they sit at 17-4 overall, 8-2 in terms of the conference race. So it's interesting what they're able to do. They are 8-2 at home, 7-1 away, and 2-1 in neutral sites. Getting back in terms of the Red River Athletic Conference. Before we get to Langston and Sooner, you have Xavier. They sit behind LSU Alexandria at 12-4, but they're right there in the mix, 13-5 overall in terms of what they're getting done. And then when you talk about the Sooner Athletic Conference with men's basketball program, with the standings there, fascinating to see what's going on in so many different ways. With Langston, if you would, they have struggled a little bit, and when you look at what's going on in terms of their total standing, they sit at 12-5, 6-4 away. They haven't played the dominating basketball we've seen last year. They're just 16-5. They have 2 teams, to give you an example of what that means. They have 2 teams ahead of them in the SAC, if you would. Nelson sits at 13-4 and tied with Wayland Baptist. So they're just 1 game back, but they've lost a couple of games. So with that being said, AD Drew, what are you doing with the NAIA in terms of those couple of programs we listed there? Who's on your mind playing the basketball in the NAIA on the men's side?
For the first time in about 4 or 5 years post-pandemic, the highest rated HBCU in the NAIA is not coached by Chris Wright. Can y'all believe that? Across 2 different schools, both Talladega and Langston. Florida Memorial actually is ranked higher than Langston. Florida Memorial is number 15 in the latest rankings, where Langston has dropped to number 18. And that says a lot about that program when they're still in the top 20, and you're talking about how far they've dropped. So that tells you what Coach Wright is out there doing. Those are the only 2 HBCUs that appear both in the top 25 and in the receiving votes category. And I'm not going to wish anything bad on the Langston program, but Langston, Coach Norman, make sure you send your check in, because y'all need to make sure y'all keep that man out there, because the success that man has been having on the HBCU level, once again, I am surprised no one has come after him, and he's having another one of those years. So y'all better start selling some chicken plates and washing some cars at Oklahoma so that y'all can keep Coach Wright around for another year. And watch out for Steelman. They're on the coming out of the HBCU AC. We know they get 2 bids. Steelman can be one of those teams. Coach Beasley over there at Steelman, he just knows how to get it done during that time of the year. So those are my highlights that I wanted to point out in this conversation.
Good stuff, AD.
Can I jump
He
out?
said he went from the chicken plate to the fish fry. Charles, what you going to take out of the hot water? You going somewhere else?
I mean, the statistical anomalies that I always come across. I mean, Jamal Gibson is averaging almost 23 points and 16 rebounds a game for Suno. I mean, that blows me away.
But you know what also blows you away, Charles? What's their record?
Yeah. I mean,
who else is doing anything?
Yeah.
Is he the James Harden of NAIA basketball?
That's so interesting that you point that out. Is he the James Harden of NAIA basketball? And then Michael Taylor, he's shooting 47% from behind the arc for Stillman. So just those statistical anomalies kind of jump out for me.
Good stuff. Let me give you some final updates as one game has went final on the women's side of HBCU at the Division I level. Tennessee State could not get it done as they fall to Little Rock 67-60. I'll give you some updates in terms of the SWAC. With that being said, we have FAMU controlling things at home in Tallahassee over Alabama State 63-36 as they've opened it up. That's 7 minutes left in the fourth. It's still at halftime with Alabama A&M Bethune-Cookman, 28-25, as we reported earlier. Grambling has pulled away slightly. It's still early in the first quarter, 15-8 with 4:36 left in that matchup. Jackson State is taking that same 7-point advantage over Southern. They're up 18-11. That's 8:56 left in the second quarter before half. Fascinating to see what's going on there. Charles, it brings a smile to Charles' face.
Yeah, it's 2011 now.
As we get ready to close out, he's making sure you get those updates. I don't blame him.
Still early, Charles. Still early.
It's still, hey, but you know what? You better get a hand up into Talia Dilworth's face. She already has 10 points in this game. She leads the SWAC in scoring.
Let me give you an update on the division side of the men, independent-wise. As we said, Tennessee State at Little Rock later today, but we have those early games in the Coastal. Northeastern is up over Hampton, 46-25. That just started in the second half. You have A&T Aggies are struggling mightily at half as UNC Wilmington is up 42-25. To give you some updates across the landscape in the Division I. Yes, AD Drew?
Just a quick question before we get out of here, especially for me, since I don't necessarily live in SWAC country right now. But anyway, how has the from you guys' perspective, how has the women's only gone from your perspective? Because and the reason I asked about the women, because we're used to the Saturday, Monday with the games, but Thursday is like a brand new day for us to get used to for looking for basketball. If you're a SWAC fan, so I'm just kind of curious.
I've heard a little bit of mixed results. I think Charles and I have a little bit of cheat code, particularly here in Houston. We have the advantage point where Texas Southern has gotten off to a hot streak with 7-0. They had a pretty amazing game just to open stuff up before the students. And as word got out that they have an excellent women's basketball program, by the point that they're winning these games undefeated, you've seen really good crowds on Thursday. We did have the winter break, so we'll kind of see how that plays in the thing. Charles, what have you heard at Jackson? I've heard relatively good things at Southern. But again, those are the teams that are winning. Alabama A&M as well. So it's one of the things that I went into this, that it's going to be more important when you play in this style that you win. For those teams that win, they're pretty solid. For those that are not, you may see some struggling numbers. Charles, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think to follow up on what you were saying and talking to Burnett Skeet for Texas Southern, she's loved it, and the crowd support has been continuously building. It has been great thus far. And same thing with Margaret Richards at Jackson State in terms of those Thursday night games, that fan base coming out, and more importantly, the students really coming out and being vocal and bringing their signs and things of that nature, and having a good advertising to go out on those particular days. So one of the things that I think both coaches talked about is making sure they get out in front of the student body on those particular days or on a Wednesday leading up to that Thursday night game, and make sure that you get the student body turned out for those nights.
Good update. Thank you for that question, AD Drew. Great update from you, Charles, giving some people some insight about those Thursday women games. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, AD Drew, getting it done for us today. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'll see you next Tuesday. After these games are played over the weekend, got the rivalry game. Prairie View comes to Texas Southern, should be a packed house. Will be interesting to see what that looks like. We'll be in there. Then you have another one on the other side in Atlanta. Fascinating to see what that looks like from the AU Center with Morehouse and Clark, Atlanta. Too bad they playing on the same weekend, man. Atlanta, we couldn't get you out there to host us, Charles. We have to, AD, we have to work on that.
Dr. Cavill, we invite you back for the Big Cat Hardwood Classic, which will be hosted at Morehouse Forbes Arena on February 22nd. If you really want a real experience, we don't know what they do down ASM Boulevard. That's Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard for y'all. But we know what we're going to do over here at the house. Come on over here to the house if you want a good experience.
I like that. They pay you good money and pay you well. Good one.
AD Drew, block out November 1st on your calendar as Jackson State visits Tallahassee to take on the FAMU Rattlers.
I'm getting out of here.
I think, unfortunately, that might be the same weekend as the Big Cat Classic.
Wow. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta on Facebook and Instagram. DrKenyattacavil. They already planning their football season. We can't get all the schedules out. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with YouTube, Facebook. Can we get a little bit of baseball? Close out on basketball before we get in this.
Baseball open up this weekend, Dr. Cavill. Come get your fix. Be down in New Orleans.
Dream big. Continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon, Charles.
Of course.
AD.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Travel light, everybody. You wrong, Chuck.
He call you by your first name. You know.
I know, right?
I mean, you did that.